Hello and welcome. You're watching the Times of India. I'm Nalin Mehta. With firing still going on the LOC at various points, not a day is going by without more soldiers dying on the border. With me is Rajeev Chandrasekhar, independent MP of the Rajya Sabha from Karnataka. Rajiv, you have tabled a private member bill to declare Pakistan a terror state. If you can tell us, why do you think such a move is required? Is that just verbal saber rattling, or is that something which will actually make a difference to our effort in countering Pakistan?
So I think there are two points here that we need to understand in the context of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Number one, I think there is no doubt in your mind, my mind, nor anybody who's watching their mind, that Pakistan has been a state sponsor of terrorism. It came into our drawing rooms on 26/11, and it has gone into many other people's lives before that. And we saw it in Uri recently. That Pakistan is sponsoring terrorism as a way of its waging war on India is something that is a widely known fact. Also, it is widely known that we as a nation for many years have been going around the world screaming ourselves hoarse about having international countries declaring Pakistan a terror state. So it seems to me that while we are the biggest victims of Pakistan's nefarious terror activities, and we do want the rest of the world to declare Pakistan a terror state, it seems to me a dichotomy that we will continue business as usual with Pakistan and not call them a terror state. Because if there is a nation and there is a people that is most afflicted or affected by Pakistan's state sponsor of terrorism, it is India. So I thought it was high time that we in Parliament reflected the will of the people, because there is not a man or a woman in this country that does not want this. That the Parliament goes ahead and declares Pakistan a terror state, with the objective that then the government of India, the current government of India, will also say it cannot be business as usual with Pakistan. We have to, in a sense, redo, re-architect, reframe the narrative that we have with Pakistan and not continue to believe that is always the same thing that we continue.
So may I ask you, what does this mean in practical terms? For example, despite the real, we have tensions are at an all-time high in terms of recent years with Pakistan. Diplomatic relations with Pakistan are still on full swing. Trade relations have not been cut. Cultural relations have not been cut, despite politics around the Karan Johar film and so on. From the government side, nothing of that sort has happened. So when you say that Parliament should declare Pakistan a terror state and the government should act tougher, what steps does that entail beyond just the articulation of that?
So I think the first step is the articulation of that. So the second step is piloting a bill such as the one I have introduced and starting a larger discourse. Because one of the things that politicians and governments are very sensitive to is public opinion. And what the tragedy in India is that the public opinion about the public narrative around Pakistan and its role in terrorism waxes and wanes with terror attacks. I want there to the whole objective of introducing this bill, and there are critics that say this bill will never make light of the day. It will die. It will be like every other private member's bill.
Private member's bill, I think last one was in late 70s.
70s and so on and so forth. But the idea of this private member's bill is to start the discourse, start the discussion that does not ebb and wane with the wax and wane with the terror attacks. That the people of India start a conversation about what should be our relationship with Pakistan. Given that Pakistan is a terror state, shouldn't we be today, after thousands of innocent lives have been lost, shouldn't we be getting into a discussion, you, I and millions of Indians, on what should be a relationship with Pakistan? So that every time there is a new government or a new prime minister, we don't go into this volatile situation of we are friendly, we are cut off the same cloth, we are brothers, we are sisters.
You are talking about turning Pakistan into some kind of a North Korean pariah.
No, I think it is important that in India and in the minds of all Indians, there had to be one standard narrative of Pakistan. What is Pakistan vis-a-vis India? Because we tend to get distracted by we should be friendly with Pakistan. It is not the Pakistani individual or the citizen that is responsible for these atrocities on India. It is the Pakistani army. And we go into this and give them, in a sense, a way of squeezing out or getting out of what should be a natural anger of a nation against a nation.
And the Pakistani deep state has never shown any inclination of changing vis-a-vis it is
for decades. For decades. So the idea of this private members bill is to say, look, enough is enough. There is obviously a gap between what the popular sentiment about Pakistan is and what the political sentiment about Pakistan tends to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the political sentiment of Pakistan has been way too pragmatic, way too, let us say, I'm using the word realistic.
Mm-hmm.
You get into the diplomaties of the relationship with Pakistan, and you tend to then start forgetting what the popular sentiment of people is. And I want the popular sentiment of the people of India to get inside the door of Parliament and not just restricted to sound bites and periodic chest beating when soldiers die and sacrifice themselves, but to transform a narrative of our relationship between India and Pakistan to something that is more real, and not go back and say, we share the same culture, we share the same civilization, so what is wrong with actors coming and acting here, and have the whole issue getting distracted by a non-issue like a movie and an actor.
So in many ways you're talking about a very, what international theorists call a very realist view of Pakistan, deal with it the way you see it.
Exactly. And I want that to be dealt with not just by the people of India but also by the politicians of India and the political leadership of India.
So if this bill goes through, or certainly even if it doesn't go through, it's going to create a narrative, it's going to help in creating a certain kind of narrative. You are also the convener of the NDA of South India. For this government, what concrete step would you like to see this government taking over and above this?
I would like the government to say and do what they said immediately in the aftermath of Uri, which is to say, look, business as usual is not on the table as an agenda. We are going to re-examine everything that we do with Pakistan. We will look at the diplomacy part of it, we will look at the trade part of it, we will look at the economic part of it, we will look at the military part of it. Every one of the options that we have as a nation, as a people, we will put on the table in a basket of, in a suite of options.
Downgrading diplomatic ties.
The most favored nation status, the Indus Water Treaty, trade restrictions, overflight restrictions. Why should we allow a Pakistan International Airline flight from, let's say, Karachi to Singapore to overfly India? It makes it easy for them to overfly India. If you say no Pakistani aircraft can overfly India, so they have to take a circuitous route, more expensive route. There are economic levers that we can use to legitimately justify our anger, justify our frustration against Pakistan not being a civilized nation living by the rules of all civilized nations. And that is where we are today. We are increasingly being frustrated by a nation hiding behind this duality of state versus military, and that duality helps them inflict terror on us and get away scot-free without any accountability. And I think it is time now, we are saying, as a nation we say, accountable you must be. It may not be always accountable in a military way, but accountability you shall have to bear. Because when lives are lost in India, we are not a nation that says, it's okay.
You're talking about a complete paradigm shift in the way we deal internationally with Pakistan.
Absolutely.
But may I ask you also that, do you think that the international environment also is more favorable to India in that sense? I mean, after Uri we saw the way the Americans didn't come to the aid of Pakistan. They said India has a right to do this, especially now with Donald Trump coming in. Do you think it's more favorable for India to do this?
I think the world is exhausted with terrorism. The world is done with creating covers and explanations and alibis for violent crime against innocent people. If there was a time when the world would look at every violent terrorist group as hiding behind a freedom or some cause, I think today the world is exhausted. You have Iraq, Syria, Libya, the entire, all of Middle East, you have Baluchis, you have all kinds of other movements all around the world. But at the end of the day, the governments are saying now around the world, if you have a political dispute, sort it out politically.
Right.
There is no justification in the world, whatever the justification be, that allows you to perpetrate violent crime on innocent people. And that, in my opinion, is a Rubicon that increasingly is getting drawn in like a line in the sand, and that countries like Pakistan that have relied on this narrative of freedom fighters and jihadis. If you look at 1947, and I was reading a book recently, the narrative of 1947 is exactly what Nawaz Sharif is saying today. Freedom fighters in Kashmir. Now, let's assume for a minute there are 10 misguided people in Kashmir who are freedom fighters. That still doesn't justify launching terror from across the border.
So, just as with the surgical strikes, this government changed the paradigm of how we deal with. I mean, there have been strikes before, but this time we overtly said and made a big diplomatic thing about it. You were saying also change the larger matrix.
Yeah, I think we are redefining what national interest means. And I think it's high time we did that, because the rest of the world is saying it is all good to talk about having friendly relations. It is all good to be aspiring to be living next to a friendly neighbor. But if that does not happen, it doesn't mean our national interest gets put on the block. We must be clear about what we define to be a national interest, whether it's China, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's whoever. And that those lines that we draw on the sand of national interest cannot be violated. And if you violate them, we have this broad spectrum of tools, including economic sanctions, that we will use.
Thank you so much, Rajeev Chandrasekhar, and we'll wait and see about the progress of this bill. But you are certainly starting a new conversation about the tools.
And that is precisely the intention.
Thank you so much. Keep watching the Times of India for live updates.